Item number 7, public education information. Commissioner Stebbins, anything new to report on your?
We are just finalizing, I think, one more speaker, so hopefully we'll have our agenda all laid out. We've tried to create a good sense of balance from our speakers, both folks that have done study and market research work in Massachusetts, as well as some outside voices who may not have been the usual suspects, so to speak. I know we have the announcement now up online, and we can accept registrations for the event in Worcester. And by next Tuesday's meeting, we'll have a finalized agenda with all of our speakers lined up.
June 14th at?
Quinsigamond Community College in Worcester.
At 9?
Starting at 9, 8:30, registration, 9 o'clock start.
So any friends in the media, please get the word out. On the community mitigation and compulsive gambling, let me just give you a quick update and see if this is going the direction we want to go. There were pushback on on several issues. First of all, we had originally talked about going to southeastern Mass, just because we want to go to various places around the state, but realized that we were bumping up against the referendum in Taunton and all the stuff going on down there, so maybe this was not the right time to have the commission end up, because we don't want to look like we are in any way trying to encourage anything or taking a position on anything. So so the Community Mitigation Forum, which is being led by MAPC, Mass Metropolitan Area Planning Council, is now scheduled for the 18th of June in Framingham. And I think and will be on its own. It won't be combined with the compulsive gambling. There was feeling that these are big enough topics that we need more time. Everybody was glad to get more time. So this would be a full morning just on community mitigation stuff. And they will circulate, I've been talking with them, they will circulate plans, panels and so forth for us to interact with. Tentatively, we've been talking, Commissioner Stebbins and I met with the Compulsive Gambling Association and Kathy Scanlon, who was their director and still works with them, and they are very interested in having also a half-day forum on compulsive gambling issues. They proposed several days. One of them didn't work for us because it was our Tuesday day meeting day, so I think it is the 25th. Is that a Monday? 25th? Is that, I know?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so Monday the 25th is proposed to be the compulsive gambling forum. And again, we've been talking about, we all have had, we know people, Rachel Volberg, and there are a bunch of other people that we've already, gotten information from who would be participants in that. And we will hear from them, we're getting an agenda iterated around in the next probably week or two. Does that work for everybody? Does that amount of lead time and so forth seem reasonable? Okay, we haven't talked about a location for the compulsive gambling. Maybe it's time to go to Western Mass, I don't know.
I thought Worcester was Western. Maybe my part of Western. Sure.
Okay, I think that's it for that. Any other issues, Commissioner McHugh, on community outreach and stuff?
There are none for this week,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Do you want to talk a little bit, after we made the agenda, several things have come up in the area of research that we either are mandated to do, or we would like to do, or other people would like to do, and Commissioner Stebbins and I talked about this a little bit. You want to sort of introduce the topic?
Sure.
Brainstorm here.
And I think it's critical when we talk about the forum on the 14th and the forum on the 18th and the 25th. Section 71 of the law lays out, some in great detail, some in broader terms, some kind of baseline or benchmark research that we need to conduct and have that information, that research, those findings transmitted to the legislature 2 years from the date of passage. So we're looking at November of 2013, which would have been 2 years from the date of the passage of the bill. There is some role in the gaming Policy Advisory Committee, which I think will not be established by the time we may need to initiate some of this benchline study work, only because 3 of the representatives on that Policy Advisory Committee are from the 3 licensees. 3 others are from the host communities, and as we heard today, we won't know that for a while. But they do only offer an advisory role. It's not a binding advice that they give to us. So what I would like to do and prepare kind of for our next meeting would be some breakdown of Section 71, what our requirements are. And then I think we need to have a discussion where the law is rather broad, that we begin to think about what research we do want to have done and what components of that are to really measure and benchmark the success or the impacts of gaming once these casinos are up and operating. Hopefully a baseline study that we can go back and look at that empirical evidence in 3 years and conduct another study to see what progress has been made on any number of topics, from employment to income to housing to a lot of the unintended consequences that the law clearly states that we need to study. So, as I mentioned to our consultants, there are some questions that I might have about the funding resources for those, how those funds are generated for the study in advance of having that revenue source established and out there.
One of the in one of these discussions that I've had with Ms. Volberg and others, I came to the personal realization that this research agenda, as it relates to the baseline study, is really a long lead item. In other words, it's something that we need to be thinking about sooner rather than later. First of all, to commission it, or actually to hire and conduct it, because all of that would be the steady current state as we start implementing what we're about to implement. That research agenda will have to be then updated to benchmark against the baseline study. But this baseline study is something key.
Right.
So.
Well, and I, as I think I said to you, I asked Commissioner McHugh to ask Anderson and Krieger to review the research roles, and maybe we should add the funding to that. Because the language is convoluted enough that it's not an easy reading to understand exactly what all is supposed to be done when. This issue of a baseline study, it's not exactly clear to me what that consists of, what that's meant to consist of.
Right.
But I've been reading a report, which I'm going to be sending around. It's a big one, but it's a Canadian report that is, I think, the definitive compilation of research done on post-gambling socio and economic impacts. And they basically, it's a academic study done by a group from Canada. They searched on every word, gambling, casinos, everything, and found every study they could possibly find. They came up with about 500 studies that have been done. And they just took everything, whether it was self-serving or not, and then they did a very, very careful review of all of them. If I remember the numbers right, of the 500, 7 were considered excellent, 22 were considered very good, meaning the other 470 of them weren't worth much in the view of these folks. But there is a real dearth of academic quality research about what happens to a community when you bring in expanded gaming. And from every aspect, as you say, what happens to housing, what happens to sociological relationships, social capital. And we have a great opportunity to do some really significant research on that topic. And I think it's kind of called for in the law, but even to the extent that it isn't, I think it's something we ought to think about doing and fund it from whatever source we can think of to fund it. So everywhere from that kind of an idea to the other things that are specifically in the statute, I agree with you that I think sooner than later, I've even wondered whether we don't need a research director. If we might need somebody who's strong enough to help us really vet and oversee and manage some serious research projects, but,
Well, and as we get to the application process, we're going to be reviewing a lot of economic impact information.
Right.
Impact information, mitigation, data submitted to us by our applicants. It will be helpful to have somebody on board to validate whether what they're giving us is genuine or whether it's, their view of the world. But I think, as we've laid out these three forums, I think going through those three forums may give us more thought into, again, that benchmark information
Right. Well,
that we
that's a good
need to, that we'll hear from them in terms of what we should be measuring ourselves
Yeah, that's a good
against.
point.
Well, there's also, we could certainly, as part of the RFP process, we have the discretion to request specific behavioral information where some operators may be reluctant to volunteer it. There's privacy issues, et cetera, and that all has to be ironed out, but relative to understanding the gaming, or the level of gaming or the level of gambling that may happen on on an existing casino. In other words, we depending on how we structure our licenses, that data could be made mandatory.
Right. Yeah.
By this commission.
Yeah.
And which again would inform the research that
Yeah.
would have been done prior to that,
Yeah.
and then compared.
Yeah.
Keeping in mind that that policy advisory committee can set a research agenda for the year. So to your point of having that team in-house to kind of manage it for our behalf might, I think is worthwhile.
Yeah, I think it's an area where we could really contribute something to the industry that would be really valuable. If we're, since it hasn't started yet, we still have a chance to establish real baseline data and real serious methodologies. So I think that's a really important idea. So if Commissioner Stebbins has kind of volunteered to take the lead in sort of pulling this together, so if you can, if you're comfortable continuing to do that.
Sure.
So help frame this up for us. I think this is interesting and kind of exciting. Anything else for other business? Anything else we forgot?
Next
I have
meeting-
nothing.
Next meeting is scheduled for
that's it.
Tuesday,
Yeah.
which is a day after Memorial Day.
Yeah.
Does that present any kind of logistics?
Means
Well,
we
it
have
means
to get
move
the agenda out.
We have to announce
Day
it
after tomorrow.
a day earlier, and we'll, yeah, we have a little bit less time to prep. Elaine, I think, will be back. Elaine and Karen will both be there.
Just
I don't,
a
yeah,
question.
no, it's a good point, but I don't think of anything big enough that we should think about either postponing or anything. I think we can just go ahead. Does everybody agree? Not just, you okay with that?
Sure.
Yeah, but do you have other?
No, I'm, sure, that's fine.
Okay, great, then I think that does it. We have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.